Hey everybody, Angela Loria here. I'm the founder of the Author Incubator and creator of the Difference Process for writing a book that matters. So excited that you could join us for today's featured author. Please meet Tami Stackelhouse. She is the author of Take Back Your Life, Find Hope and Freedom from Fibromyalgia Symptoms and Pain. She is a fibromyalgia coach, and she is also the founder of the International Institute for Fibromyalgia Coaching Studies. We are going to delve into the journey of the last 18 months or so since Tami started the process of writing her book. And today, what I'm so excited to explore with you guys, to have a conversation with Tami about is, especially, I think many of us feel this way even that aren't dealing with a chronic illness, but especially if you're dealing with a chronic illness, how can you clone yourself? How can you get a message out there that you know is powerful, that you know creates hope and healing and change, that you know saves lives? Tami has evidence that what she's doing actually saves lives.
Yeah.
And you know there's only so much of you to go around. You know there's only 24 hours in the day. Maybe you've also got other obligations. Maybe you just don't have the physical resources, even if you could work 24 hours a day to do that. And so we're going to talk about how can you take your work, use it as a framework, and have an army of people spreading your message out there. So we are going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about how you get through a project as substantial as writing a book. And I think your book has to be over 300 pages. It's
good size.
Yeah. How do you take on a big project like writing a book when you know that you have a chronic illness to manage, and when you know you might have a flare-up or an outbreak or a meltdown or just a bad day? How do you even start that project? And then how do you finish it? So lots of ground here to cover. As you are listening, I want you to think about your own life, your own goals, your book, all of the things that could hold you back, the stories that could hold you back, this is the downright logistics of life.
Totally.
That could hold you back from getting this done. And I hope you are as inspired as I have been by Tami about how she has accomplished what she's accomplished in a relatively short amount of time for this part of the journey.
Right.
But I want to go in the Wayback Machine a little bit, and let's go back to the very first time you and I connected. Mm-hmm. You were already a fibromyalgia coach.
Right.
How did that happen? Did you have a traditional job that you quit and became a coach?
Oh gosh, yeah. So going way back, I got married in 2006, and I had already started to see fibromyalgia symptoms at that point. I was already hurting more than I thought I should at 30, and I was tired all the time. I remember I worked as the customer service manager for a software company, so I managed the call center, all the tech support, super stressful.
I was going to say, that's pretty low stress.
Super stressful.
I'm sure when most people called, they're like, hey, if you can
I'm just calling to say I love you.
Right.
Yeah, no, we didn't. We got a couple of those, but not very many. So I remember one day specifically thinking if I could just close my office door and turn off the lights and lay down on the floor, I would be out. I was just that tired all the time. And I had tried talking to my doctor about what's going on. I thought.
Did you try melatonin?
Yes.
That's good.
Yes. So many different things. But it wasn't until I got married, got new insurance, got a new doctor, that I was finally diagnosed. So I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in 2007. And then in 2008, I actually filed for Social Security disability. I remember sitting on my stairs. I had company coming over the next day, and I was trying to vacuum the stairs. I was still in my pajamas from that morning, and I'm sitting there. I mean, you can imagine, right? Sitting on the stairs trying to vacuum the stairs. I was just so exhausted, and I just started crying because I'm like, I can't take care of my house. I can't take care of me. I'd probably been wearing those pajamas for a week, you know, and maybe that's what disability is all about. So I started that process, and in 2009, my doctor actually connected me with a health coach, which is what turned everything around. By the time I got in front of a judge for my disability case in 2010, I no longer qualified. So in just a year, I had seen such a big difference. And so that's why I decided to be a coach.
Now, are you somebody who came from a family or a community where coaching was something other people had tapped into? Is that a concept you knew?
Sort of. I was always one of those people who, like, if there was a seminar or a book or whatever, a little bit like you, like, read everything.
Like, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, you know, I was always self-improvement, anything I could learn, you know, be the best I could be. So coaching seemed natural for that, but I had never seen it in terms of health. You know, having somebody to help me implement all of those things that my doctor was telling me to do, changing my diet, you know, changing my sleep schedule, all of that, you know, that part was new for me.
And then at some point, you drank the Kool-Aid because you became a coach. So how did that happen?
So about 6 months in to working with my coach, I was like, gosh, you know, I'm seeing so much benefit. I think I might like to do this. And the really funny thing is my husband was excited about it too. And I told him, I'm like, you know, I'm so sick. I'm not well enough yet. You're going to have to do a lot of this. And now it's like all me and like not him at all.
You told your husband that? Really?
Because at the time I'm like, you know, I'm just starting to get better. And I didn't really feel like I had the energy.
Did you think going back to an office, going back to managing a customer service team, was that on the table as?
Never. Yeah, there's just no way. Even now, I mean, right now, I really don't have fibromyalgia symptoms. I don't really have any pain. I have the energy to do what I want to do, but I don't think I could go back to a regular 9-to-5 office job with all that stress, being on somebody else's schedule, working in an office, fluorescent lights, sitting at the computer, all of that stuff I just don't think.
You'd be right back down the stairs with the vacuum.
Exactly, yeah.
So you start coaching.
Yep.
You get certified, you start coaching, and did you like that? Did you see results for your clients? Was that...
You know, it was really
interesting. Was it just a little, like, run a lemonade stand, like a little side thing?
It kind of was at the beginning, a little bit like that, until I talked to my first person who had fibromyalgia. So at first I was like, you know, most coaches, well, health coaches, anybody that wanted to feel a little better, you know, people that maybe wanted to lose a little bit of weight or, you know, had their cholesterol numbers too high or whatever it was, you know. But I really I knew that what I could help people most with was what I had gone through, which was my fibromyalgia. And the first time I talked to somebody on the phone who had fibro, I remember hanging up the phone and literally feeling like I should take off my shoes and kneel on the ground, that this was a holy moment, that it was like a burning bush thing, right? I was like, this is what I was made for. It was the most amazing feeling, just knowing that I was able to help her in a way that nobody else could or had been able to. And I've been hooked ever since.
So when did you have the idea to write a book?
It was never my idea. I just had a lot of people telling me, you should write a book, you should write a book. I'm like, you know, and I kept thinking, the work that I do with my clients is so individual.
Ah, yes.
You know, I'm sure you hear this all the time, right?
Well, I felt that way. That's what took me so long to write my book. I'm like, it's totally different with each author.
Right, because every client...
I wouldn't know how to write it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's all dependent upon what's happening in their lives, whatever their issues are, what their doctors told them to do. You know, there's all this stuff in my head. How would I even get it out of my head? All of that. So I was like,
and you did have a beautiful website. I remember seeing your website the first time we talked, but you didn't really think of yourself as a writer or as particularly like academic.
Not really. I mean, I've always written. I've always liked to write. And I remember being in fourth grade. My fourth grade teacher told me at one point, and I still have his little note. I have to find it, but I still have it, that says, "Those of us who have a book inside of us should find a way to get it out."
Oh, so I love him.
It just took me, 30 years or so to find the thing that wanted out.
The journey from fourth grade to holding your book.
Yeah, but I never really, I enjoyed writing. Like
so a lot of people come to us, and for 10 years they've been working on the same book.
Yeah, no.
They've always wanted to write a book. It's been 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And for you, it was more your audience pushing you.
Yep.
But you were starting to, I think you had like a sliding scale or something. Did you have like a sliding payment scale?
No, but my rates were really low.
Right. And I seem to remember you were kind of out of, even though you didn't have that many clients, not like you had hundreds and hundreds of clients, but there wasn't a lot of room.
I was maxed out.
Right.
Yeah. So, having a chronic illness, there's only so much energy I have. So everything is a choice. And if I could take more clients, but then what else would I have to not do? Because, it's kind of like money, right? It's a budget. And
Right.
so if I only have $100, if I spend 80, then I only have 20 left.
You weren't ready to give up the husband just yet.
No. So, it was like, or run the risk of falling back into being in pain and being tired. I had found that for me, right around working with 10 clients a week, I had more clients than that because some were every other week or once a month or whatever. But working with 10 people in 1 week felt like my balance point. Any more than that, and I felt frazzled, and I started to have less energy, and I started to maybe have a little more pain. And so I'm like, 10 people a week, gosh, there's way more people out there who need help. There are way more people than that who are contacting me for help. How do I can't help them all.
Right. And how did you, people would call you and they'd say, hey, I would like to hire you. Here's my credit card. There wasn't room in your schedule. How did you find saying no?
Oh, it was the most awful thing. Oh, it was just, I just hated that because the emails that I would get would be so heart-wrenching.
I want to help you. I know exactly how to help you. I know what you can do. I could solve the problem in your email. No.
It's just, and realizing too that one of the ways that my people solve their problem, unfortunately, is sometimes suicide. Just because they can't handle the pain any longer, or they can't handle the giving up all of their social life because they don't have the energy to go, and then losing friends because their friends think that they don't like them anymore, and just all of that stuff. I even had one client who committed suicide just because she couldn't handle the pain anymore.
And I think that was during writing the book, wasn't it?
It was just after my book published. My book came out in June and she passed away in July. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea that was coming to you was, I have to find a way to replicate myself. I have to find a way to be able to say something to them other than
sorry.
Because did you even have people to refer, other people you could refer out to? Did you know other fibromyalgia coaches?
No. There really isn't anybody that does the kind of work that I do.
Now there is.
Now there is. But there were other coaches, like other health coaches, but they didn't necessarily understand the illness. So some of the advice that would be given in trying to be helpful just was wrong for somebody with fibromyalgia and could actually be harmful. There were other, psychologists, therapists, people like that. Again, quite often they don't understand the illness themselves, so the standard advice that you might give somebody who's just depressed doesn't necessarily apply. I mean, like exercise is quite often the things that we're told to do because it increases your endorphins. That's
Not
tricky.
a great fit.
Yeah, it can be done, but it's tricky. So yeah, there weren't a lot of good resources out there for people, and so I really had nowhere to send them. It was awful.
So was that the first time we talked? Were you already at that point when we first talked?
Not quite at that point. Yeah, I still had a little bit of room in my schedule. You know, I mean, clients fall off and you can take new people on, and so I wasn't at that desperate point, but I could see it coming.
Right.
And so I'm like thinking about how can I duplicate myself? There's only so much of me to go around. How can I solve this problem to help the people that need help? And that's when we first talked about my book, but I wasn't really ready to write it.
You did not sound like a lady who wanted to write a book.
I didn't. Because it wasn't about me wanting to write a book. It was about people telling me I should write a book. It was a completely different thing. But the one thing that you said that I thought about for a couple of months was you could use this as a curriculum for a certification program. And that was what I was excited about, was this idea of duplicating myself.
Because that was, I've had times in my life and in my business where I've had like a mantra. And your mantra was definitely like, there's not enough of me to go around. There's not enough of me to go around. Like,
yes.
If I were to name that phone call, it was, that was
just
it.
isn't enough for me to go around.
Yeah. And so a lot of times I tell people this and they don't always believe me. So this is some evidence. Much more often than I tell people they should come write a book with us, I about 80% of the time say you shouldn't write a book with us, and you were one of those people.
Yep.
And my thought is always like, I could be playing this hunch wrong, but I sort of trust my guides and my intuition. And so if I'm not getting a hell yes, it always feels in my head a little like the jackpot in Las Vegas. Like if I'm talking to somebody who should write a book, I can kind of hear the slot machines going off, right? And if I'm not getting the slot machines, I'm like, it's a no, like say no. So he said that, and then my kind of promise to myself is, if we're supposed to work together, they'll come back. And I loved when you came back around, there was an email that was just, I'm ready now, what do we do? Like it was no drama, it was very short. It wasn't like I want to ask a bunch of questions.
No.
It was like, let's go.
Yeah.
And I think it was I think it was close to 6 months later.
Yeah, I think we talked it was probably like November or so, and then it was like March that I started.
That sounds about right,
Yep.
And why were you ready? How did you know to send that email? Like I said, no drama email, like, I'm ready, where do I give you my credit card? Like, let's go.
You know, it was because I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was like I would lay there in bed at night and think about what my book would be about, think about what I wanted to say, think about the people that it
So it was going from you should write a book to I want to write a book.
Yes. And it was seeing how the book fit into the greater picture that really did it for me. Because I had actually had the idea for maybe 6 or 8 months prior to that about doing some kind of a certification, because I started getting people emailing me. How did you get to be a fibromyalgia coach? What kind of training does it take to do that? That sounds so interesting. I think I would like to do that. I'm like, maybe there's something here. And so that combined with me seeing the edges of my capacity, I'm like, I think there's something to make this work. And seeing that a book would be a good stepping stone to get there, to help me develop the curriculum, to help give me credibility, visibility, all of that, made it make sense. Because before then it was just, oh, you should do this.
Right.
And now there was actually a purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
So usually this moment when people make the decision to work with me is like very exciting. So it's like, I'm ready, let's go, here's my credit card. And then there's a moment of, what the hell did I just do?
Yes.
I'm like, did you have that? Did you have that moment of like, well, wait a minute, what was I
Oh my God, I'm gonna write a book. Yes, actually I did. But what's kind of funny is that I'm actually having it a little bit more now with my second book than I did with my first book. Which is interesting because my first book, I had all of that in my head. I mean, it was like I hadn't really written about anything except blog posts here and there. So I had all of that to choose from, right? I knew I had tons of information that I could put in my book. And I knew what I wanted it to accomplish. It was all super clear for me. So while it was scary of, I'm actually going to do this, I also knew that I had everything that I needed. Starting to write my second book is like a whole new thing. I mean, I'm not the same person that I was that I wrote the first book. My business is completely different. My goals are different. And so there's a little bit of...
Well, you had a very good setup with the first book too, because even if for some reason you decided not to publish, even if for some reason you decided not to train coaches, the exercise of getting clear on what your curriculum would be, what the contents, what you would teach someone, like just getting that stuff written down, that alone was a pretty powerful exercise.
It was. There were a lot of resources that I have for people now that I didn't have before. So going through and actually writing out some of the tasks or exercises I would give to a client, like helping them create their joy list, and then, planning out their dream week to help them manage their energy, and all of these kinds of things that I did with clients one-on-one, actually making a process. And
were you like going back through emails and like looking at who did I coach, what did I do with this person?
Yes, exactly. What are all the things that I tell people when I'm on the phone, And so going through all of that. And it was really great because I hadn't gotten any of that information out of my head. It was all up here before. And so actually having it concrete and it was...
So this is, I think there's two takeaways here I want to share with people. The first is very often people will come to me and ask if we have ghostwriters or if they should get a ghostwriter, what I think of ghostwriters. And I actually was a ghostwriter for 17 years, so I'm a huge fan. I would say the thing about ghostwriters is if you develop this program and you've been teaching it for 25 years, whether you get a ghostwriter or not doesn't make a huge difference. If you're a relatively new coach or if you're pivoting in some way,
right? And
this is a great example. If you've been coaching directly people with fibromyalgia, and now you want to train coaches on fibromyalgia, just the act of writing the book is worth the investment in the program. It's like you become so much better. And I learned that. I have a funny story of how I learned that. I actually learned that I walked out of an event. So I went to an event from a very famous trainer that a lot of people know. And I hated this event. It was like very manipulative selling tactics. And the whole thing was selling, and I was like so turned off. But one of the things this trainer taught was how to plan out a curriculum, like a teaching curriculum. And he really wanted people to train coaches. So I was like, if I had, because I, like you, thought what I did with my authors was so custom. I'm like, I do something totally different with each author. And his point was, you probably don't. So I sat down and I was like, if I was going to train book coaches in my method, which had no name, if I was going to train book coaches in my method, what would I teach them? So I walked out of the conference. It was in California. And I went to Half Moon Bay with a friend. We sat in Half Moon Bay and I wrote out my whole curriculum, which became my book, The Difference. And I was like, oh, I do the same thing. It is different, but there's probably 90% of the same stuff that I do with everyone. And the next day I was a better coach. A remarkably better coach. I knew my stuff so much better. Because when I would talk to someone, I could see where they were in the process. And I never trained coaches. I never wanted to really train coaches. It crossed my mind, but having a process that you could teach someone else, even if you never started the Institute, even if you never published the book.
Right.
It just makes you a better coach. And if you hire a ghostwriter, it would make the ghostwriter better at, like, I felt like I was an expert in Windows Server backup. I was an expert in
Right.
Hong Kong finance. I was an expert in being a spy. Like, because I would learn about this stuff for 2 months, write a book, and then learn about the next topic.
Right.
And that's all it does. But did you feel your confidence level changed?
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that I realized was that before writing my book, what I coached my clients on was very reactive in terms of what was going on in their lives. But after I wrote my book and thinking through the order of how I needed to put my chapters and which things people needed to hear first, changed how I coached.
That's totally true. I can completely see that, because if they came onto a call and they're like, oh, I'm so tired and I have to go to my brother's wedding next week, then you might do some stuff on sleep, but it probably isn't going to help your brother's wedding.
Right.
Whereas if you were doing that in week 1, then 8 weeks later when the wedding came up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
So the next thing that comes up, so first it's like, oh my God, what did I just commit myself to?
Yep.
And then the next thing that comes up in various forms and flavors is, who am I to write this book? Like, who am I? Like, I'm just a girl with fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
I don't have a, medical degree.
Yeah.
I don't have, like, I'm going to now tell other people with fibromyalgia how to deal with it. How did you address that question for yourself? How did you answer that question to yourself?
That really...
Who do you think you are, Tami Jackalhouse?
Who are you to do this? I had to answer that question as a coach, too, because I don't tell this to everybody, and now I guess I am. But I was one of those really smart kids in high school and grew up in a really small town, so there wasn't a lot for me. I actually ended up taking the GED, so I didn't get me out of here.
Right.
And then I went to college, and...
Did you get out of your small town for college?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually came to Portland, which is where I am now. And I had gone to college for a couple of years and realized I really have no idea what I want to do. And this is a really huge kind of waste of money. And so I started working. So I didn't graduate from college either.
I think the word you're looking for is drop out. So I
dropped out of high school and I dropped out of... Yes. So really, who am I to do this? But the thing that I realized as a coach that was so important, I even had to answer the question of, I'm a health coach, but I'm not at my ideal weight. So who am I to talk to people about health when I'm overweight? But the thing is that when it comes to living with fibromyalgia, I am a rock star. I have that so under control that it's like, I don't know if I would even qualify as having it if somebody were to test me. Now, if I go back to my old habits, I know I would, but that I've got. So that really helped learning that as a coach and being confident as a coach. And then writing the book, that all comes up again, right? And especially starting an institute where I'm training people. Oh my God. And I still occasionally will see, get this certification or get this training, and I'm like, should I
I should do that. Maybe you should go to the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute.
Maybe I should.
So I remember a day, I don't know if this was a big deal for you, but I remember a day when you sent out an email to your list saying, I'm not going to be doing one-on-one coaching anymore.
Yes.
And I think you had a few spots left, and it was like,
yes,
these are the ends.
This is it. Yeah.
And there were people who, had worked with you for a long time for, whatever, minimum wage, whatever you're charging people, which was not much.
No.
And you had to really, I'll almost say goodbye to that identity, that incarnation of you. And that girl who decided to be a fibromyalgia coach, she saved your life. Like that, like that's
Totally
not
did.
like a terrible identity that you just
No.
wanted to throw off the bridge.
Right. I love working with clients. I love what I do.